I'd like to welcome you all for the afternoon session of the Conference on Health and Movement held in Sherman, Bell Harbor. Today is the 20th, January 20th, 1984. For this afternoon session, we have something a little bit unusual. We're going to explore optimum health through movement with two speakers who will have a time each for their own, and then it will be interactive in their discussions with you. The first gentleman is Robert Lessne, and he is one of the most unusual people I've ever met. He is very, very gifted and talented. Here's a man who spent a year learning how to be blind, even though he's sighted. He has worked with the blind. He's worked with people who are severely disabled. He has abilities which I'm just beginning to understand. He has a background in both economics and business school at the University of Miami, as well as in rehabilitation counseling and in behavioral disabilities. I want to introduce Bob to you today and give him a freedom to explain and do the things that I think will probably be highly enlightening and extremely rewarding for us. Bob Lessne, thank you. The floating mic. Floating mic, you can use it anywhere you want.
Okay. Fine. I have about a half an hour to talk to you, and you have about a half an hour to listen to me, so if I get finished before you do, just let me know. I'll tell you a little bit about my background. I graduated at the University of Miami, and then I do have a master's degree in what's called parapathology, where I was blindfolded for the year to learn about blindness. For a blindfold, had a C9 dog, used a cane, and the purpose for that was to empathize, to kind of put yourself in the place of a blind person or brain damaged person or what have you, in order to kind of feel what they're going through. I never said I was blind because I could always take off the blindfold. And the reason I find we have some police type people here is to get that message across for you to understand what that prisoner, what that other fellow human being who's walking around erect in the world with you is feeling when you put handcuffs on, when you, whatever. I also have another degree in movogenics, which is movement orientation through visual efficiency through the University of Wisconsin. And this is, again, working through movement. And I'm going to give you some of the theory behind what we do in movogenics and in parapathology so you can equate it to whatever you do. Because we took our theories and we kidnapped our theories through architectural work, engineering work, mathematical work, and we just took the best and adapted it to what we do. For instance, working with brain damaged children and working in mobility for the blind people, it might be transferable to firemen, or it is, where we teach city manager police or fire department, because when the fireman's in the smoky building, he can't see, he's a blind guy. So if he knows the techniques that we use, then it allows him better to survive. Okay, now, if I can remove this. And I'm going to give you the basic theory. And the basic theory is that all human organisms, and that's what you are, process information and form meaningful relationships on various perceptual motor planes. And I'll explain that. If I use big words like delicatessen or other big words and you don't understand, let me know. The various fields are V, A, K, T. Now, what this means is visual, auditory, tactual, and kinesthetic. We leave out gustatory and olfactory because it's really not necessary for survival that you smell and taste. In other words, if you were in Africa and you had to go and smell out the saber-toothed tiger, and then you have to check for the mushrooms and see if they're poison, that would be interesting and that would be important for survival in our society. But in our society, if you don't smell or taste, you can still survive very nicely. Okay, when I talk about V, that's vision. The difference between sight and vision. the difference between looking and seeing. There's a difference. One is physiological, one is psychological. A blind person must have vision in order to survive. Can't see, but he has vision, or she has vision. A visual person has a particular behavioral characteristic. Visual people are usually myopes, nearsighted people. The world is designed by nearsighted people for nearsighted people, and that's where movement comes in. Is vision movement? Is vision a mode of function? Yes, because the lines of light come in and it moves. When it hits your eyes, the photochemical process moves. Aristotle said movement is life. So we're talking about the movement pattern. A visual person is usually anal fixated. A visual person comes over here and is very exact. A visual person uses words like, I see what you mean. Everything is integrated, interrelated, and interdependent. One with the other. And I'll show you how that works. So the visual person, incompatibility, and again, if we have a lot of policemen here, you have to treat people according to their needs and not your needs in order for them to survive. Because if they survive, you're going to survive better. So a visual person might be uncomfortable in a dark police car. A visual person would be very meticulous. If you mess them up, a visual person would be very, has to be meticulous. You look at their closets, usually they're wearing vertical stripes instead of horizontal stripes. Usually they're very neat, their shoes are lined up, right in the corner. So that's a visual person. And by the way, visual people are not policemen. The policeman is the police chief who does all the paperwork. Because a visual person is the tax attorney, the pathologist, the guy who looks into the microscope and counts all the microbes. That's the visual guy. Okay, the auditory person is the person with the big mouth and the big ears. The auditory person is the sales type person. This is a person who is high auditory, high A. This is a person who, again, in compatibility would be the person who's always on the telephone, goes home and immediately turns on the radio, the company. Always processing information on the auditory plane. The kinesthetic person is the person who is the mover, hopper, skipper, jumper. This is the person who plays football. This is the person who is the street cleaner. This person, his motor is always going. You have the go-go, the slow-go, and the no-go. And the racehorses are the people who are the kinesthetic people, the racehorses. It's very difficult for a racehorse to become a paraplegic because now the racehorse has turned into a turtle. Turtles don't like racehorses. Turtles don't get along with racehorses. So if indeed you're going to be a kinesthetic person, or you are a kinesthetic person, you should choose your disability wisely. Don't choose the wrong disability. The visual person makes a rotten blind guy. Sees the psychiatrist every day. Can't stand it. The accountant becomes blind. Terrible. The auditory person, the big mouth person, is a rotten deaf guy. Terrible deaf guy. The kinesthetic person is a terrible wheelchair rider. The last one is the tactual person. That's the person who always touches. How are you? Nice to see you. Nice to see you. Always touches. Plays with the hair. Trichotillomania, playing with your hair, pulling it out. Tactual person. Beautician. Typist. These are the people who make rotten arm amputee people. So again, you diagram who you are. For instance, let's say that you are a visual person, 92%. Okay? Auditory person, you could be, say, 80% auditory. Then, if you're a tiny K and a tiny T, in order to have the organism, your children, remember, you were designed along lines of stress in order to avoid stress. For instance, if I, as a big A person, I am A, I am this way, instead of B-A-K-T, I am a big A, a big auditory first. So when I yell at my children, I discipline my children and I yell at them because I do it to make me comfortable. A K person would take the kid, throw him up there, throw him against the wall. A T person within that kid. You know, don't talk, don't listen. We use the television set. Again, cognition is the area. And when you watch Laverne and Shirley, you don't think. When you stop at a stop sign with your car, you don't think. You automatically stop, but your brain is on vacation somewhere. So the cognitive areas of perception are important, again, for survival. And as you design your children, you want your children to be movers in space. We are what's called terranauts. Now we got the astronauts, and we are terranauts on terra firma. And we function on a triordinate system, not coordinate, because we have the depth concept too. So your child, when you have children, you want them to be high, V-A-K-T, Y-V first, because you want them to go to graduate school. And only the myopes, only the nearsighted people, go to graduate school, because that's where the action is. The action is not in the KT. The only problem is that the KT people will live longer because their heart is moving. If you are only visual and process information visual, then you have no muscles and you don't move. Stress is the food of growth. And there are various types of stress. You have plus. Let me erase this a little. Okay, you got plus stress, plus 0, minus spirit, minus. Now, where should you be in your movement orientation program? And by the way, remember that the perceptions develop along a normative curve. First, you develop your auditory sense. Why? Because when you're in the cave and the saber-toothed tiger comes around the corner, you can hear it there. To escape. So you develop your auditory and you develop your tactual. Why? Because the tactual, again, the mother's breast and the mouth is the center of the universe for survival. And then you develop your kinesthetic and then your visual sense. And as you die, you lose them in the same order as you got them. You go through the clutter stage of your life when you're a child, and then in nursing homes, you go back through the clutter. So you'll be looking to go over the curve from the beginning to the end. Now, again, to relate to people. How do you relate to people, and how do you cause compatibility? Again, I'm talking a lot to police type people, as well as other disciplines. How do you relate to your wife? How do you relate to your children? Again, if you do this on a scientific approach, a movement approach, a movement approach, for instance, if you massage, so you want to massage someone, you go from proximal to distal, from this way, from cephalad to caudal. So the human being develops along this developmental pattern. For instance, you start the child, again, the children, in the crawling process. And the crawling process first is the homologous type of crawling. That is both arms up and then both legs up. Then you go to the homolateral. Then you go to cross pattern from this in crawling, which is the same as throwing the ball. First both, then this way, and then through reciprocal intervention, interweaving, you have to interweave this part of the body with this part. And it's on a higher plane of intellectual and physiological consciousness that you do this. Now, in the major problem we have in the world is the energy surrounds that impinge upon you. What are the energy surrounds that you have to fight in order for you to be at this plus stress basis? The plus stress basis, again, is the growing basis. Gravity is one of the problems. When you're a little kid, you have to fight gravity. Gravity is trying to kill you. You sound like a paranoid schizophrenic. Gravity is pushing you into the ground. What do you do to fight gravity? You have to have movement to fight gravity. You have hopping, skipping, jumping. And if you're at the mercy of gravity, your survival is threatened. If you're at the mercy, you need a wheelchair. If you need a crutch, your survival is threatened. If the teacher is trying to kill you, the teacher is trying to flunk you out, the sergeant in the police department, he's trying to get rid of you. You have to have the tools to fight the battle. And the model I use for that, I use a model like this is the person, and on your back is a big sack on your back. And you have to carry this sack. And part of the theory of life is homeostasis, or balance. You gotta have balance. Balance. Now, when I talk about balance, I'm not just talking about sitting and not falling over, but I'm talking about endocrine balance, I'm talking about mental well balance. And each of those, you can't divorce the psychological from the physiological. So balance is important in life. So while you're reading and learning, why not balance yourself on the balance chair? A child, when he's learning, or when he's growing, or when he's into a physical education activity, why not have this person, instead of just using their eyeballs, why not read out loud? And then if I'm going to go 2 times 2, I'm going to go 2 times 2, put my body in it, learn through my body. If I can, I'm going to touch it and also take off my shoes, because why just use your hands to touch? Why not process information through all modalities? Because instead of just throwing, for instance, half your body away, we're right-handed people through cerebral dominance. Now that means I'm right-handed, I use my right hand, I'm right here, what'd you say? No, right here, right eye, I look at you like this, and I read it with my right eye, right-footed, kick the ball with the right foot. How bad a person will I be if I can use both sides of my body? Learn and assimilate information through both ears. Use, the tongue steering. There's a physiological hookup between the tongue and the eyes. So you steer with the tongue. You see, children, based on laterality. Where does laterality come in? Now, the tonic neck reflex, which is an important part of movement. In movement, everything stops at the midline, The midline in dancing and in physical therapy. And the tonic neck reflex, when the child is born, first of all, the thumb is in the child's mouth, and that's how vision develops. See the flickering, finger flickering, okay? And it comes out here like a fencer. Now, if you stimulate the child's body, and instead of laying the child in the crib both this way, so only one side stimulated, you turn the kid different ways. You crawl with the kid, you put the kid on your back, and you put the kid in the papoose. Because if the kid's on the papoose looking forward, now the kid hears what you hear, sees what you see, and then gets the rocking back and forth. And they did a study in Ceylon where the children were strapped to their mother's back, and the blind children didn't develop the blind mannerisms, and the retarded children didn't develop, because now they're, instead of being Adlerian inferior, your little kid seeing your mother's knees all the time, you're up top, hearing this stuff and doing all of this stuff. Now, back to my model. In the balance situation, you have your needs. And the needs are movement needs that you have to, in order to survive, fill your needs. Some are broken needs, some are big needs, some are little needs. What are the needs? Food. Need food. The more needs you have, the more difficult it is for you to survive. The people with very little needs can survive. If I need a lot of food, I gotta go dig the holes and plant the food and make a lot of money and get the food. Okay? Shelter. Need a lot of shelter. See my big house with the swimming pool and the grandiose things? Hey, I got the big shot disease. See that? I gotta go, do that stuff. And I tell you about it, then you make me pick up the tab at lunch. That's what I gotta do. The food, okay, clothing. Gotta have the clothes, okay? I need love. Hey, gotta go out and go do all that stuff. I need love. How much love do you need? The people who need little love don't have to go out and get that stuff. You need God. How much God do you need? You need a lot of God or a little God? You need a lot of status orientation. Okay, and all these needs, and you can diagram your own needs, and you can diagram the visual people need a lot of visual needs. Gotta read books. The auditory people says, hey, I'm starving, talk to me, tell me you love me. I told you when I married you I love you, now stop talking. I'm not an auditory person. I just don't tell those things. But I'm an auditory person, I need that. Or if you're an auditory person, I need oral sex, and I need oral stuff. So if you are not compatible, or if you're a policeman and you want to talk too much, hey, you talk too much. I can't help it. I'm designed to talk too much. Or I gotta run after this guy. If you're a tactual guy, you're gonna arrest him by clubbing him. If you're a auditory person, you're gonna talk him. Hey, the guy's doing suicide, send that guy. He talks a lot. He'll talk him down. If you're a visual person, you're gonna be hey, where's that bookwork? Boy, I'll fill out those papers. I love it. Love to do it. Tactual person's gonna type out the papers. Okay, now. So you analyze your need, VAKT plus all the other needs. Now, in order to balance, you have to have the tools to fight the battle. And life is the battle, and that's the exciting part of life is the battle. Otherwise, it's blocked. It's a dull thing. Every time you get out, you fight the battle. And the tools have to be shiny, have to be new, have to be not rusty. If you rust, you rust. Okay. The tools are hopping, skipping, jumping, rationalization, avoidance reactions, denials. All these are good tools that you're constantly feeding your needs, and it's a balance. It's a balance. You got too many needs, you die. Because the needs are going to knock you into the ground. So the tools that you have are totally for survival. And who's more important in survival, me or you? Me. So if necessary, I'm going to look at your sack, and I'm going to say, I need that, and I might steal from you in order to make me survive. And that's what compatibility in jobs. Most people do jobs that they hate. The kinesthetic people want to move. You put a kinesthetic person on a desk-type job, he's a go-go. He wants to move. That's a terrible job. You put an auditory person as a librarian. Hey, that's not for me. A trial attorney, if you say do the tax work, I don't want to do that. I'm a trial attorney. Family doctor, instead of a pathologist. So again, you have to choose that in the compatibility studies. Any questions so far? Any questions so far on this stuff? Okay, now, in movement, we follow the developmental pattern of where you are in time and space at the present time. And you try to figure out, when I was with C9 and I had the guide dog, my instructor would talk to me like he was a dog and said, hey, I expected the dog to stop at the red light because the dog it was the red light. And the instructor says, hey, I'm colorblind, I'm a dog. No, that's a red light, or not a red light. Want the dog to go, the dog, would look at me, whatever, you have to know what to say. By the way, you never use the word fooey in front of a guide dog, because fooey is the word that's disciplinary. The blind person will pick up the leash and say fooey, and it'll hurt the dog's feelings. So you never do that. Let me get to the next page. This is part of the theory that I go with. Okay, there's a fellow named Ashby who described life as a homeostatic adapting. So we have to be in the closed loop system adapting, bilaterally equating. Again, this is the concept of using both sides. Dynamic. Multi-stable system designed as an energy mechanism in order to promote survival in an energy surround. So, in that, there is a wisdom of the body that promotes this survival mechanism, and you got to go with the wisdom of the body as long as you understand who you are, where you're going. And the most important thing is, again, to enjoy life and to enjoy your body and to enjoy movement and not to let anybody, including yourself, have the power to rip you off. Any questions? And thank you very much. That's basically the theory. If we use this, by the way, for brain damaged children, we use it for blind people, we use it for compatibility studies in husbands and wives, in jobs, in by taking various tests to find out who you are. For instance, if I said the word trumpet, some of the people are going to feel the trumpet, some of the people will hear the trumpet, some of the people are going to see the trumpet. So again, we have testing mechanisms for this, and we have ways for you to know yourself, design the children, be compatible, and hopefully live a good life with your fellow human beings. Thank you very much. Question? Yes, ma'am.
It says here that you are sports medicine and exercise physiology.
As a matter of fact, that's not true. How about Lessne? Next one. You have the program upside down, man. Yep, you're going to upside down. But thank you. Joe will answer that question. That's the next speaker. Thank you.
You know anything about the rapid swing? You're talking about movement.
I am not a swinger. Don't know. Thank you. Carl,
I would be particularly interested at some point, maybe in the question and answer session after our next speaker is spoken, if you can illustrate some of the things you're talking about, because I thought I understood a whole bunch of things, probably privately, I didn't understand when you were speaking here.